On a chilly autumn evening, just as the sun began its descent, casting long shadows across the small village of Clearwater, a young man named Ethan found himself wandering through the old cemetery. He wasn't the type to get spooked easily, but there was something unsettling about this place. The headstones, weathered and cracked by time, told stories of lives long gone. Yet one corner of the cemetery seemed forgotten, overgrown with wild ivy and tangled vines. There, among the forgotten, stood a single patch of earth, unmarked. Ethan had heard the stories, whispers passed down from the old villagers. They spoke of a grave, one that had never been marked with a name, a place that no one visited. Legend had it that anyone who disturbed the soil would bring forth a curse that no one could escape. It was said that whoever was buried there hadn't been given a proper burial, their soul left restless. Feeling a strange pull, Ethan moved toward the unmarked grave. The air seemed to grow colder, and a faint, almost imperceptible sound filled the air, like a distant wail carried on the wind. His breath hung in the air as he knelt, brushing aside the leaves and dirt that covered the patch of earth. His heart raced as his fingers grazed something hard beneath the surface. He hesitated, his mind screaming at him to stop. But curiosity got the best of him. He began to dig, the cold earth giving way to something solid, wood, old and rotted. His fingers trembled as he uncovered a small wooden box, no bigger than a shoe. There were no markings, no inscriptions, just the dull, lifeless wood that had seemed decades, if not centuries, underground. Suddenly, a whisper echoed in his ears. "Help me." Ethan jerked back, his heart pounding. The voice was faint, as if it came from beneath the ground. He looked around, but the cemetery was empty. The sun had nearly set, and the shadows stretched long and dark across the headstones. Without thinking, he pried open the box. Inside was a piece of cloth, torn and stained with what looked like ancient blood. Beneath the cloth, a small bone, brittle and yellowed with age. The instant he touched it, the ground beneath him trembled. The whispers grew louder, more urgent. "They buried me here, forgotten, unmarked." Ethan stumbled back, dropping the box as the earth around the grave began to churn and shift. From the soil, a hand emerged, skeletal, decayed, yet moving with purpose. Then another hand. Slowly, a figure began to pull itself from the ground, dirt and decay falling away from its form. It was a woman, or what had once been a woman. Her hair hung in matted clumps, her eyes hollow and filled with darkness. Her lips moved, but no sound came out, only the eerie, guttural groan of the dead. She fixed her gaze on Ethan, her empty eyes pleading yet full of wrath. "Why did you awake me?" Her voice was a raspy whisper, filled with pain and anger. Ethan couldn't move. His body was frozen in terror as the figure fully emerged from the grave, towering over him. Her skeletal fingers reached out, brushing his skin, and a wave of icy cold washed over him. "You must finish," she whispered. Before he could respond, a vision flooded his mind. He saw the woman, alive, desperate, being buried alive in that very spot. He saw the villagers, their faces cold and uncaring, as they threw dirt over her still-breathing body. She had been condemned for a crime she didn't commit, buried without mercy, without a marker to remember her by. Tears filled Ethan's eyes as he felt her pain, her torment. What do you want me to do?" he stammered. Her skeletal hand reached out, pointing to a nearby headstone. The name on the stone was faded, but it became clear to Ethan in that moment. She needed to be remembered, to be given her rightful place among the dead. "I will," he whispered, his voice trembling. As if satisfied, the figure began to fade, her form dissolving into the night air, but her eyes remained locked on Ethan until the very last moment. The whispers faded, and the ground grew still once more. Ethan spent the next day in the cemetery, carefully carving her name into the headstone. He didn't know what her name had been, but he gave her one, a name that would not be forgotten. When he finished, he stood back, feeling a strange sense of peace. The air felt lighter, and for the first time, the unmarked grave seemed at rest. But as Ethan turned to leave, he heard a whisper on the wind, faint but unmistakable. "Thank you, but remember, the curse remains." From that day forward, Ethan never spoke of the grave again. But he knew, deep down, that once the unmarked is disturbed, it can never truly be at peace.